CTV's W5. One woman's fight to change a life
If you could change somebody's life, wouldn't you take the steps to do it?
against all odds.
I knew it was going to be complicated, but I had no idea.
From a land of poverty and suffering,
It's like a melting pot of the worst possible toxic stew,
where children live with little hope for their futures.
and it's taken out an entire generation.
As a result, foreign adoptions are very rare.
Kimothy Walker,
So you just left your life behind.
I just left it.
with a heart-wrenching struggle,
Tears of joy. I was so happy.
Nothing else mattered. I was his mom.
the long battle for love and family,
I had to stand up and defend my motherhood.
and along the way, bringing hope to so many.
I really believe I got the greatest gift.
Here is Lloyd Robertson.
Welcome to W5. For most parents, there is no more powerful or profound feeling than seeing and holding your newborn child for the first time. In that moment, there isn't anything a parent wouldn't do to keep that infant healthy, happy, and safe. That's what happened with Peggy Taillon. But what makes her story different is that until that moment, she wasn't expecting to become a parent at all. A single, high-profile Ottawa executive, Peggy was doing volunteer work in Africa when she was asked to help a poverty-stricken family in crisis. A baby named Devlin needed caring for. And from the instant he was in Peggy's arms, she knew they were meant to be together. But it wasn't that simple. To become mother and son required her to take on local traditions and laws and perhaps even face the prospect of leaving her life in Canada behind. All for the love of a child. Kimothy Walker now on one Canadian woman's fight to form a family.
Let's go.
It's an early morning hockey practice in the Ottawa community of Alta Vista.
Line up behind Devlin.
And among the skaters, 7-year-old Devlin Taillon. Devlin's mom, Peggy, is just like any other parent here, watching her child attentively and cheering him on. But their journey to become a family sets them apart.
Did you have fun up there? Yeah. You were playing so well.
They have overcome incredible obstacles, defying geography, custom, and, for a time, even the law, in order to become mother and son. And it all began a world away from a chilly Canadian hockey rink. Let's step back in time. It's January 2006, and Peggy is heading here, along the shores of Lake Victoria in Western Kenya, a community called Asembo Bay.
This is an area that's been decimated by AIDS, right?
Yeah. The rural area is has been really quite devastated by malaria and TB and HIV. You put all of that stuff together, it's like a melting pot of the worst possible toxic stew, and it's taken out an entire generation.
Peggy's close friend Wendy Muckle has persuaded her to take a break from her high-profile $200,000 a year job as a vice president at the Ottawa Hospital and make the trip in order to help Kenyan widows and orphans.
I was, I'd say, a healthy workaholic, working kind of 24/7 on call and long working days, and a really challenging job that I loved. But I was really looking for some place to breathe. And she said, you really just need to come to Kenya. And I just thought, you know what, I really do. And I really needed to just go away and do something that would bring some different kind of meaning to my life. Amosi, everyone, Amosi!
And while it's the charity work that brought her here, Peggy makes a startling revelation to her friend.
I literally turned to Wendy and said, you know, I'm going to look into adoption. Like, I've always wanted to adopt. I'm going to look into adoption on this trip.
And what does Wendy say at this point?
Wendy says, in Wendy's way, you know what? I bet you it'll be easy.
She couldn't have been more wrong. In their first 2 days in Asembo Bay, Peggy and Wendy meet countless children in need, and they encounter a family in distress. Their 14-year-old niece is pregnant, and the poverty-stricken family has no way to care for the baby.
So I said, well, Peggy will take care of the baby, won't you, Peggy? She turned around and she looked at me and she said, yeah, of course I'll take care of the baby.
I had kind of thought, okay, I'll help them. I'll see if I can help them with the baby. I'll see what happens.
Just 2 days later, and Wendy receives word about the baby and immediately calls Peggy.
I said, Peggy, I want you to do two things. I want you to sit down, and no matter what I say, I want you to just keep on breathing.
She's literally saying to me over and over again, your son was born last night. Your son was born last night. And I'm like, what are you saying? She said, it's a boy. He was born last night, and they're on their way to see you.
Soon, a man on a motorbike arrives and signals her to get on. But she has no idea where he's taking her.
Got on the back of the bike, and off we went down this sideways road, going deeper and deeper into a part of Kisumu that I'd never been, and very clearly a very impoverished area. And my first thought is, Canadian woman found dead on the shores of Lake Victoria. Like, what am I doing on the back of a motorcycle? And of course, we're driving into Malaria Central, so the mosquitoes there are the nasty kind. And I'm trying to take the mosquitoes, and I'm also trying not to fall off the motorcycle.
Finally, they reach their destination, this bar deep inside the destitute village of Dunga.
I took a deep breath and walked in, and my life was changed at that moment.
Peggy is handed a newborn, a boy named Devlin.
I felt an absolute sense of calm. I had this baby who was 17 hours old, responding to the sound of my voice with his little head, and nothing else mattered. I was his mom.
Peggy may have felt in her heart that she was Devlin's mom, but the chances of her legally adopting him were remote. Kenyan tradition dictates that if a child is orphaned or can't be cared for by their family, they will be raised by their extended family or within the village. As a result, foreign adoptions are very rare. Single-parent adoptions, all but prohibited.
So today, Devlin is 7 days old.
With the blessing of Devlin's biological birth mother and her extended family, Peggy assumes all responsibility for raising him, believing she'll be able to bring him home to Ottawa before long.
And he had his first official shopping spree. I think we've just about got it all sorted out until he could come home to Canada.
Do you have any idea in the days after his birth what kind of struggle you are in for?
I knew it was going to be complicated, but I had no idea that I had done so much damage to the adoption process. That was not my intention.
I remember about 8 applications.
And you got 2.
2 went through.
Susan Acheng Tuoma runs one of the largest adoption agencies in Kenya. If Peggy was going to have any chance adopting Devlin, she would need her help.
So what did you tell Peggy about her chances of adopting Devlin?
I had to tell her the truth at that point, that it may not be possible to adopt Devlin.
And when you found out that she was a single parent?
Even more challenging. I was clear that we would not be able to take up the case.
But she just kept saying to you, we have to try?
Very optimistic lady, I must say. Very, very, very optimistic.
Peggy eventually persuades her to take the case. But persuading other Kenyan officials would prove much tougher.
I had to stand up and defend my motherhood over and over and over again. Like officials in Kenya who, when I would call him my son, they would correct me and say, he's not your son until we tell you he's your son. Here we are, June 25th. Still here in Nairobi with the beaner.
5 months pass, but still no progress. Few Kenyan officials seem open to the idea of an unmarried woman, a foreigner, legally adopting a Kenyan boy.
Come see Mama. Come on. Ready, set, go.
What happened to your life back in Ottawa while you were in Kenya fighting for Devlin?
It kind of faded a little bit for me. My life there, because of Devlin, was so much more vibrant.
So you just left your life in Ottawa behind?
I just left it. I just left it.
I'm hanging out with my mama and Asembo. Happy baby! Happy baby!
Raising Devlin and securing a happy future with him requires Peggy's full attention. She quits her well-paying job in Ottawa
Devlin!
and tells herself that being with Devlin might mean never returning to Canada.
You were going to stay in Kenya for the rest of your life if you had to.
Yeah. I literally thought if they were going to put him in an orphanage, that's fine. I'll just rent a place near the orphanage and volunteer. Like, I will do whatever it can. Like, I will be a part of his life, whatever it is. I'll go clean the floors in the orphanage or cook the meals so that I can raise my son there. But I wasn't leaving.
He's so excited and shaking the bag.
He's so cute.
Devlin is nearing his first birthday, and Peggy and Devlin celebrate Christmas in Kenya. Their status as a family still in doubt. At long last, on February 29th, 2008, 13 months since the day Devlin was born, when Peggy first held him in her arms, she is summoned to the Supreme Court of Kenya.
All of this has led to a decision, and there's no real appeal process for this judge.
He starts to rhyme off the litany of provisions that I don't meet, the criteria that I don't meet, the provisions that I've broken in the law, and literally ends by saying, and I need to hear something incredibly compelling to see that there's actually exceptional circumstances in this case for me to approve this adoption. I literally thought my only hope is to throw myself on the mercy of the judge.
So what do you say to the judge in that moment?
I said, I believe that Devlin and I were meant to be mother and child. I believe he was meant to be my son before he was born. I was meant to be here when he was born because our paths were connected. And I said, you know, he is my son. I think a higher power chose him to be my son.
But even at that, you might not have been able to keep him.
I had taken my passport with me to the courthouse, and I thought, when they turn me down, I'm going to hand them my passport and beg them to keep it and let me keep Devlin. I'll give up my life in Canada for Devlin. Just let me stay.
Peggy's devotion to Devlin is obvious, and for the first time, a Kenyan judge approves a foreign adoption of a young boy to a single mom. Peggy and Devlin are officially a family.
When I heard that he was ruling in favor, it was like the earth kind of opened up for me. Like I felt like collapsing. I was so overwhelmed by it. We walked up to the judge and I thanked him, and he said to me that in all of his years he had never seen such determination and devotion.
Just days later, Peggy and Devlin arrive in Ottawa.
When I got home, it was a relief that we were going to carry on the way we should, that we were going to have the life that we should have together, that we were meant to have together.
Friends and family are there to greet them. An overwhelming beginning to their life together in Canada.
Next, giving hope from a world away
Okay, well, we'll give that to Kenya.
with love and determination
I made a commitment to put her in school.
when W5 continues.
Okay. Oh, look at these shoes, Wendy.
It's a packing party at Peggy Taillon's.
We need more suitcases and we need more pencils, crayons, markers.
She and her team of volunteers are loading up bags full of donations.
These would be great for the resource center.
Everything from school supplies to soap to sneakers.
These are all shoes that were donated from Devlin's school in this bag here.
All this and much more is heading to the Kenyan community of Asembo Bay.
Okay, well, we'll give that to Kenya.
It was on a trip there to do volunteer work 7 years ago that Peggy met and later adopted her son Devlin. As a way to repay that community for the gift of her son, she created Hera Mission, a Canadian-based charity that raises money for Asembo Bay widows and orphans. Hera is Devlin's middle name. It means love.
I really believe that I got the greatest gift. And if I can give them back even like a small drop of that, I'm honoring my son and I'm honoring his family and his heritage. 6, 7.
Last year, the charity raised more than $20,000.
1,100.
This batch is from families at Devlin's school and his hockey team.
Wow. The orphans and the widows are going to be pretty happy about this.
Not only is all this heading to Kenya,
We can use the pockets on this suitcase too.
but so too are Peggy and Devlin.
Oh, look at this one.
Their first trip back in 6 years.
Remember? Well, you don't remember because you were just a baby, but you were there with me.
In 2008, Peggy won the right to legally adopt Devlin, the first time a foreign adoption of a Kenyan boy by an unmarried woman had ever been approved.
Look over here, we're going to go here. That's the school.
They'll return to many of the places where their mother and child bond became entrenched, but there's one especially important person they're going to see.
Oh, and here's Anyango.
Anyango and me and my mom.
And what did Anyango do for you when you were a baby?
Carried me in my belly.
She carried you in her belly.
And Anyango and me.
Anyango Akama was 14 years old when she gave birth to Devlin and asked Peggy to raise him. But her relationship with Peggy didn't end there.
After the adoption, I applied for guardianship, and because she was a young girl at the time, and I made a commitment to put her in school.
As Anyango's legal guardian, Peggy pays for her education and gives her money for clothes, food, and shelter. They remain in constant contact. It's late December. Devlin and Peggy are bundled up and heading off. They've got a long journey ahead of them, and where they're headed will certainly be a lot warmer than this. It's 36 hours later, and this is where they've landed, Nairobi, the capital of Kenya. It's a bustling, congested city of more than 3 million people.
Kenya looks very different from Canada, huh? Is it what you thought it was going to be like?
Yeah.
Yeah?
It's been a long journey, traveling halfway around the world to a place Devlin couldn't possibly remember. Little wonder he's feeling worn out. But they've still got a long ways to go. They're heading off to the countryside, a nearly 10-hour journey on Kenya's chronically rocky roads.
Another bump, yeah. We should start counting how many bumps we go over.
But one that offers incredible sights along the way.
Look, he's eating a whole tree for breakfast.
Everything from geographic wonders like the spectacular Great Rift Valley to wildlife like roaming zebras and dashing impalas.
How's your tummy feeling now? Eh? Eh? Not very good? No. We'll get you to have some rest, eh? We'll be okay.
All this travel and bumpy terrain has taken a toll on Devlin. He's not feeling well, but after a brief rest, they make their way to today's destination, an impoverished village called Dunga. 7 years ago, Peggy was brought here on the back of a motorcycle, and it was at this bar where she first held Devlin, only hours after he was born.
And this is where you would have lived if Mommy hadn't come on the motorcycle and got you. Eh?
It's an awfully difficult concept for anyone to fully understand, especially if you're only 7 years old.
Ooh.
Just how profoundly different Devlin's life could have been were it not for Peggy's perseverance.
Do you think that some of the people are poor? Is that why we come to Kenya to help?
Her determination to adopt him and give him a better life back in Canada.
Mosi.
It's mid-morning in the western Kenyan city of Kisumu. And here in this humble compound, Anyango Akama is anxiously awaiting the arrival of some very special visitors. She's been dreaming of this reunion for years, and these final few moments are almost unbearable. But at last a vehicle pulls into view. Inside are Devlin, the boy she gave birth to, and Peggy, the woman who adopted him and has been helping Anyango ever since. Devlin's clearly a little overwhelmed at first.
Where are you, lovey? Coming out? Come and say hi to Anyango.
But within a couple of minutes, he musters up his courage and emerges from the car, where the woman who gave birth to him is waiting to hold him once again.
next. One woman's dedication to the orphans of Kenya
A lot of people make promises, but I'm back.
makes a world of difference.
Just love her like my mom.
When W5 continues.
It's been an emotional morning in Kisumu, Kenya. A mother and child reunion, 6 years in the making.
Isn't it like looking in the mirror?
It's just like
Just like looking in the mirror. He's just like you and your character.
It was January 2007 when Anyango, then only 14 years old, gave birth to Devlin and asked Peggy to adopt him and raise him at her home back in Canada.
I was overwhelmed with joy when I saw them. And when she came out of the vehicle, I couldn't hold my tears back because they were tears of joy.
Tears of joy.
Yeah, I cried a little and I was so happy when I saw them.
To see her today was a relief. She's part of our family, so she's a constant concern for us. So it was wonderful to see her.
And wonderful to see Anyango surrounded by caring friends and roommates.
So what did Luo say when they were going to get their picture? In Canada, we say cheese. What do you say? I don't know.
But this isn't the only reunion today.
Bye-bye.
Anyango is joining Devlin and Peggy on the next step of their journey. They're all off to Asembo Bay, the AIDS-ravaged community that first drew Peggy to Africa, and where Peggy's charity, Hera Mission, has been helping dozens of widows and 300 orphans. The people of Asembo Bay are thankful for all the charity work in their community, and they're about to show their gratitude with an unforgettable welcoming party that starts at the highway turnoff to the village. It's been nearly 6 years since Peggy has set foot in this community, but despite her absence, the affection the villagers have for her is obvious. Her return is a cause for great celebration. And the dozens of people here to greet her are only the beginning.
So good to see you.
Just down the highway, and the welcoming party turns into a parade. And as for Peggy, she's greeted like a rock star. People want to touch her, hug her, give their thanks. The parade finally comes to an end in the middle of the village, out front of the community center, the home of the Asembo Bay Women for Development. The widows and orphans here are the ones who receive the help from Hera Mission, the charity Peggy and her friend Wendy Muckle established after Peggy adopted Devlin.
Hello, say Amosi.
Almost.
Oh, that's great, sweetheart.
Amosi means hello in Luo, the tribal language spoken here. And while Devlin and Peggy are grateful for the welcome they've received,
I think the world's best hello, Hamosi, welcome back greeting ever.
the villagers are thankful for all Hera Mission has done for their community. A community filled with Devlin's relatives.
They look like you.
Yeah.
They do look like you. They're like all your family.
Yeah.
Look at Eddie's behind you. He's your cousin. I think that there were probably people on both sides of the globe thinking, sure, we're never going to see her again. Or a lot of people make promises, but I'm back. And you may not have seen me, but I've been working for youth, raising money and raising awareness and embracing the country and the culture that surrounds my son.
As for Devlin, the long days of travel and sometimes uncomfortable reunions with people he doesn't remember are finally done, giving him a chance to do what kids everywhere love most, simply to play.
He's loving playing with the children, the boys especially. He says, I have so many cousins, you know, like he's just embracing it.
It's daybreak along the shores of Lake Victoria in Asembo Bay. The sun may be just getting up, but for many people here, their day is already well underway. The fishing boats bring their morning's bounty ashore and provide the livelihood for dozens of people. This community is desperately poor. But today will be a day of many rare blessings. Thanks to Peggy and her dear friend Wendy.
Do you know why we brought things for you for school? Can you succeed if you have no pencils and papers? No, of course.
These students are the lucky ones, able to continue their education past grade 9. After that, school costs $1,500 a year, and many families simply can't afford it. That's where Hera Mission comes in. The charity sponsors about 70 students at 10 different schools. The supplies this group of students is receiving today may seem meager. A few pencils, a small stack of loose leaf paper, and some scribblers. But it's a bounty for these kids.
Thank you! Thank you! Ero Camano! Ero Camano!
Where's the other one of this?
Back at the community center.
Here, sweetheart.
And there's plenty more gifts. First, suitcases full of shoes, sneakers, sandals, even soccer cleats. The first picks go to the students who are excelling at school.
Hello, Daisy. Congratulations. Now let's see.
In a place where most kids go barefoot, these shoes are a big deal.
Great work today. Great work today.
Thank you.
Hera Mission donations also help feed the orphans and widows here. The money raised allows the widows to buy livestock, goats, chickens. But today's meal is something else altogether. It's a big gathering, and making sure everyone gets fed is no easy task. And there's even a truly special treat: cake for dessert. After all, this is a celebration, the community honoring their Canadian visitors and benefactors with a series of performances. Over 4 hours, the children take turns at center stage. There's a play and a fashion show. And of course, much singing and dancing. All of this, an expression of gratitude for all the support and the love their Canadian visitors have brought to their community. For Peggy and Devlin, it's a joyous and touching occasion. Just one more gift from the community that brought them together. And watching alongside them, Anyango, the young woman who became a mother much too young, but who, by surrendering her newborn son for adoption, gained a whole new family.
Peggy is like a mom to me. Just love her like my mom. My real mom, not my second mom, but I just love her like my real mom.
And as for Devlin?
Do you consider him more of a brother now? A brother to you?
Yeah, little brother.
He's your little brother?
Yeah.
How would you describe the relationship between the three of you, between Devlin, Anyango, and yourself?
We're a family. We're absolutely a family. She's my daughter, and I think that she looks upon Devlin as a sibling, and I think that he's starting to see her as a sister. So yeah, we are definitely a family.
An unlikely family, to be sure. One that encompasses 3 people over 2 continents, with one fortunate young boy at the heart of it all.
Knowing that there's literally hundreds of people here who love him, who want him to succeed, who are proud that he is a Kenyan son, that's a huge gift for me as a mom.
2 weeks later, and Peggy and Devlin are back home in Ottawa.
Nice shot. There we go.
Back to the life they were meant to live together, their connection to Kenya and the people there strengthened ever more.
People always say to me, you saved Devlin's life. I always say, if you could change somebody's life, if you could change your own life, wouldn't you take the steps to do it?
Now, as for the Hera Mission, the organization Peggy set up to help the people of Asembo Bay, the focus right now is on fundraising to pay for the education of another 19 students. We'll be right back.